It's a behind-the-scenes look that's been deceiving the public for decades. RT's Natasha Sweet shows us how Hollywood has been in the business of promoting war in the United States.
Thousands of newly obtained documents are shedding light on the fact that Hollywood isn't exactly what it appears to be. Some 4,000 pages reveal the entertainment capital of the U.S. has been working hand in hand with the Department of Defense, shaping the message of thousands of movies and shows. This even includes contracts between the producers and the Department of Defense.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Look no further than Madonna saying she wants to blow up the White House, or actors like Deborah Messing and George Clooney openly discussing their opposition for President Trump. There's no question the majority of Hollywood is known for their left-leaning political views. But now 4,000 pages of new documents obtained by watchdog group Insurge Intelligence reveals the U.S. government has worked behind more than 800 major movies and 1,000 TV shows. And Insurge Intelligence's new book, National Security Cinema, shares how U.S. government involvement also includes script rewrites and some of the biggest, most popular films, including James Bond and the Transformers franchise. The documents reveal the Pentagon has the power to stop a film from being made by withdrawing support. When a producer approaches the Pentagon for assistance in making their film, they must submit their script to the Entertainment Liaison Offices for approval. Phil Strub, the Department of Defense's chief Hollywood liaison, ultimately has the final say.
I am dangerous.
Films like Top Gun and Act of Valor are heavily dependent on the military and simply couldn't be made without their assistance. As you can imagine, these types of movies needed full cooperation of the military and hence must sign a contract called Production Assistance Agreements, locking them into the military's version of the approved script. For instance, the movie Countermeasures couldn't pass the military's test and was never produced. Strub specifically referenced the movie's mention of the Iran-Contra scandal, saying, quote, "There's no need for us to remind the public of the Iran-Contra affair." A reference to Vietnam was removed from the screenplay for The Hulk in 2003. According to a U.S. Marine dossier, radical changes to the script included changing the code name of the military operation to capture the Hulk from Ranch Hand to Angry Man. According to Insurge Intelligence, Ranch Hand is the name of a real military operation that saw the U.S. Air Force dump millions of gallons of pesticides in the Vietnamese countryside. But a movie that you might not think had much military involvement did.
He was in the CIA for 34 years.
In the romantic comedy Meet the Parents, a change to the scene was requested when Ben Stiller's character discovers Robert De Niro's secret hideaway. The original script shows Stiller discovering CIA torture manuals on a desk. It was later changed to photos of De Niro with several dignitaries. But this is nothing new. Insurge Intelligence says the CIA's influence on movie scripts dates back decades. In the 40s and 50s, the CIA was never mentioned by the films until North by Northwest in 1959. At this time, little is known regarding the NSA's exact role in Hollywood. But Insurge Intelligence says they found similar indications the agency is following in the CIA and DoD's footsteps. Internal emails reveal producers of Enemy of the State were invited on multiple tours of the NSA headquarters. The NSA also allowed them usage of aerial footage of Fort Meade in the movie. This cooperation is something moviegoers and television binge watchers may want to take into consideration the next time they decide to buy a ticket or flip on the switch.
Authorities in Hamburg are bracing themselves for violent protests on the eve of a two-day G20 summit. Thousands of anti-globalization demonstrators have descended on the northern German city ahead of the meeting. The city's police chief has expressed fears anarchists will attempt to carry out massive assaults during the event. G20 Welcome to Hell is the slogan activists have adopted for their protest.
A Fox News alert, and the protesters are taking to the streets in Hamburg, Germany right now. These pictures just into us, coming in live as protesters there, basically anti-globalization forces, as we understand it, are protesting the G20 summit in Hamburg, Germany, and throwing rocks and bottles at police officers and so forth. This has been happening, well, for the better part of a decade or so. If you recall what happened when the World Trade Organization came to, Seattle, I believe it was. We see this kind of thing time and time again.
Yeah, very often you can see an anarchist strain at some of these protests. And
in the shadow of a monument to the wartime Warsaw Uprising, Donald Trump has praised Poland's fighting spirit and warned the West is under threat today. Given a rapturous reception in the city's Krasinski Square, he said radical Islamic terrorism was a menace to humanity.
The fundamental question of our time is whether the West has the will to survive. Do we have the confidence in our values to defend them at any cost? Do we have enough respect for our citizens to protect our borders? Do we have the desire and the courage to preserve our civilization in the face of those who would subvert and destroy it?
They cheered Donald Trump. He stressed commitment to NATO, but said all members must meet spending obligations.
Everybody has to know this. Europe must do more. Europe must demonstrate that it believes in its future by investing its money to secure their future.
Full marks for Poland on defence.
Thank you. God bless you.
Its Conservative government meets the agreed NATO target. America loves Poland, Trump told the crowd, and it seemed to love him. But Hamburg and the G20 summit may be more of a rocky ride.
As he spoke in the centre of Warsaw, President Trump was flanked by some of the US troops who are based on the Polish border with Russia. And just hours before his first face-to-face meeting with President Putin, rare words of criticism from the US leader.
We urge Russia to cease its destabilizing activities in Ukraine and elsewhere, and its support for hostile regimes, including Syria and Iran, and to instead join the community of responsible nations in our fight against common enemies and in defense of civilization itself.
Earlier, at a news conference, he used the same word, destabilization, when describing Russia's behavior towards Poland, but contrasts that with what he said when asked specifically about Russian hacking during last year's US election campaign.
Thank you, Mr. President. To you first, a two-part question, if I may. Will you once and for all, yes or no, definitively say that Russia interfered in the 2016 election?
Well, I think it was Russia, and I think it could have been other people in other countries. Could have been a lot of people interfered. I said it very simply. I think it could very well have been Russia, but I think it could well have been other countries, and I won't be specific, but I think a lot of people interfere. I think it's been happening for a long time. It's been happening for many, many years. Now, the thing I have to mention is that Barack Obama, when he was president, found out about this in terms of if it were Russia, found out about it in August. Now, the election was in November. That's a lot of time. He did nothing about it. Why did he do nothing about it? He was told it was Russia by the CIA, as I understand it. It was well reported. And he did nothing about it. They say he choked. Well, I don't think he choked. I think what happened is he thought Hillary Clinton was going to win the election, and he said, let's not do anything about it. Had he thought the other way, he would have done something about it.
North Korea and President Trump's comments this morning saying there will be consequences for the country's bad behavior. ABC's Martha Raddatz is in Washington with more on that. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Amy. President Trump has had very strong words for North Korea, saying after his election that he would not allow North Korea to get a nuclear weapon capable of reaching the U.S. But today in Poland, he said he doesn't have a red line.
As far as North Korea is concerned, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't like to talk about what I have planned, but I have some pretty severe things that we're thinking about. That doesn't mean we're going to do them. I don't draw red lines. But I think we'll just take a look at what happens over the coming weeks and months with respect to North Korea. It's a shame that they're behaving this way, but they are behaving in a very, very dangerous manner, and something will have to be done about it.
North Korea's July 4th intercontinental missile launch has produced a warning from the United States, which says it's ready to use force if need be to stop Pyongyang's nuclear missile program. At an emergency UN Security Council meeting, Washington's ambassador said North Korea's actions were quickly closing off the possibility of a diplomatic solution.
It is a dark day because yesterday's actions by North Korea made the world a more dangerous place. Their illegal missile launch was not only dangerous, but reckless and irresponsible.
Moscow's envoy was more even-handed in his apportioning responsibility for the heightened tensions. We call upon the DPRK as a voluntary political decision to declare a moratorium on the testing of nuclear explosive devices and the testing of ballistic missiles, though the US and the Korean Republic at the same time should refrain from conducting full-scale joint training exercises. The recent North Korean launch was a major step in its missile program, showing it can reach parts of mainland America. Leader Kim Jong-un says he will not negotiate with the US unless it abandons its hostile policy towards his country.
MEPs have backed a report calling for EU membership talks to be suspended with Turkey if the country implements planned changes to its constitution. The vote in Strasbourg drew a stinging rebuke from the Turkish Minister for EU Affairs, who said it would not be bullied by the European Parliament. This cannot even be in question. We reject all kinds of proposals to drop accession talks between Turkey and the EU in favour of strong cooperation in the areas of terrorism, immigration and other subjects. Some experts say a tougher stance against Turkey could become the norm if it continues what critics see as a drift towards authoritarianism.
Turkish police arrested a local director of Amnesty International, along with 7 other human rights activists. The human rights organization said they were arrested, quote, blatantly without cause. As of Thursday morning, it said their whereabouts were unknown and that they hadn't been allowed access to lawyers or family. Police have jailed more than 50,000 people in the past year after a failed coup attempt. Turkey is still under a state of emergency. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan blamed the uprising on Fethullah Gulen, a Muslim cleric who's been in the U.S. since 1999. A month ago, police arrested the chair of Amnesty International in Turkey on suspicion he was linked to Gulen. The organization said it was proof how arbitrary the government has become. Amnesty International says other world leaders have been remarkably tolerant of Turkey's human rights meltdown. It's calling for action at the G20 summit.
Hungarian Jews said on Thursday that Prime Minister Viktor Orban's billboard campaign against migration and foreign influence, using the image of U.S. financier George Soros, was a proxy for anti-Semitism. They urged the nationalist Orban to halt the campaign. Orban's spokesperson said the campaign had nothing to do with anti-Semitism, but rather sought to only counter what he called Soros's attempts to unduly change immigration policies in Hungary. Around 100,000 Jewish people live in the country.
A Swedish comedian has proposed a way to stop sexual assault from happening at music festivals. Emma Knyckare tweeted July 2nd, asking her followers what they thought of a, quote, really cool festival where only non-men are welcome that will run until all men have learned how to behave themselves. Knykkare's idea received an outpouring of support online. Later the same day, she announced on Instagram, quote, Sweden's first man-free rock festival will see the light next summer. Knykkare's plans come in response to reports of sexual violence at one of Sweden's largest music festivals last week. Police received several allegations of rape and sexual assault at the Bravalla Festival in Norrköping. Similar cases were reported at the event in 2016. When asked if shutting out men constitutes discrimination, Knyckare told Sweden's Aftonbladet news outlet, quote, I would not exactly call it an abuse not to come to the festival.
Pro-government Venezuelans attacked opposition leaders on the National Assembly grounds Wednesday, injuring at least 5 lawmakers. Between 80 and 100 demonstrators entered the assembly grounds, largely unopposed by security forces there. They used sticks and pipes as weapons, injuring at least 15 people. Legislators opposed to President Nicolas Maduro are pushing for a nationwide referendum on Maduro's efforts to rewrite the struggling country's constitution. Venezuela's pro-Maduro Maduro Supreme Court tried to strip power from the National Assembly, which his opposition called an attempted power grab. The court later walked those changes back. Discussions regarding the nationwide vote planned for July 16th will move on as planned, according to opposition lawmakers.
Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has told soldiers to take no prisoners in their clashes with Maute militants in Marawi City. Duterte spoke to troops on July 5th, thanking them all for their service and telling them their pay would double next year. According to CNN Philippines, Duterte also promised the soldiers new equipment, the best medical care, and funds set aside for their children to be educated. He then said he didn't want the soldiers to take any Maute militant prisoner in Marawi City, instead telling troops to kill them all in each encounter. Duterte added there was nowhere to put prisoners in Marawi City and no way to put them on trial. According to the Philippine Star, Duterte told troops he was confident of their abilities as soldiers and said everyone would be getting a medal.
Can a global coffee chain promote the global fight for LGBT rights? This Muslim leader says not in Malaysia.
Our objection is because they're promoting something that's against human instinct, against human behavior, and against religion. That's why we're against it.
Muslim leaders in Malaysia now calling for a boycott of Starbucks and for its operating license to be revoked. The grievance new, even if it dates back to pro-gay rights comments that are 4 years old from Starbucks chairman and former CEO Howard Schultz, now circulating online.
I'm a Muslim, but this is actually a global issue. Don't make it such an issue that we have to boycott such a company because of one small statement.
There's the same boycott call in Indonesia and a relaxed attitude from some customers.
Personally, I don't have any problems whether or not they support LGBT rights. I love their products, not the CEO.
But others less so. This Jakarta resident says she supports the ban. While LGBT activists say recent years have seen a spike in intolerance in both Malaysia, where Islam is the official religion, and Indonesia, the country with the largest Muslim population in the world.
A new Muppet is coming to Afghanistan's Sesame Street to promote equal opportunities for all genders. Meet 4-year-old Z-Rock, the younger brother of 6-year-old Zari. The smart and studious Zari was introduced last season and became one of the country's most popular Muppets. She shows what girls can do. Z-Rock wants to grow up to be just like Zari, and she's the one encouraging him to work hard in school. Most Afghan girls don't get a formal education. The country has one of the world's lowest literacy rates, and it's especially low for women at just 17%. And in areas of the country controlled by the Taliban, women and girls have fewer rights. Surveys show Zari is extremely well-liked among viewers, regardless of gender. But the show's creators say kids learn best through characters they identify with. They hope by seeing Z-Rock admire and respect his sister, boys will do the same for girls in their lives.
And I promise you that I will do all my powers permit to be a faithful servant of the Constitution and laws of this great nation.
Elsewhere around the world, a 6.5 quake shook up the central region of the Philippines. The U.S. Geological Survey announced a tremor knocked over several buildings in the agricultural village of Cananga in Leyte province, leaving at least one person dead and dozens injured. An unspecified number of people are known to be trapped inside a collapsed building. According to Vice Mayor Elmer Cordilla, rescue efforts are ongoing. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology explained several aftershocks might follow the region, but the chances of an incoming tsunami are very unlikely.
Southwestern Japan has gotten record amounts of rain since Wednesday, resulting in at least 2 people dead, several injured, and more than 11 missing or unaccounted for, including a child. Authorities have already deployed some 7,500 rescuers to search for the missing and help people stranded in wrecked homes, schools, and roads in Fukuoka and Oita prefectures, the worst-hit regions so far. The torrential rain has caused some 500,000 people to evacuate their homes and seek refuge on higher ground. Japan's meteorological agency said more than 700 millimeters of precipitation has been reported in parts of Fukuoka in the last 24 hours alone, and that 100 more millimeters is expected throughout the day.
CNN has reported that a huge ice sheet more than half the size of Qatar could soon break off from Antarctica. If the Larsen Sea breaks free, it'll be one of the world's biggest ever icebergs, measuring 6,000 square kilometers or 2,300 square miles. That's the size of 4 Londons or more than 7 New York cities. According to the European Space Agency, or ESA, in early June, scientists said the Larsen Sea was 8 miles from the edge of the ice. It is now just 3 miles away. Larsen Sea is a portion of the Greater Larsen Ice Shelf on the northeastern coast of Antarctica. The ESA is monitoring the sheet through Cryosat, its mission dedicated to ice sheets in Antarctica and Greenland, along with a duo of ESA radars. If it drifts away, there are fears Larsen Sea could pose a danger to ships.
France is bidding gas and diesel fuel vehicles adieu. On Thursday, the country's new ecology minister announced a ban on gas and diesel-powered vehicle sales by 2040. The move is part of France's plan to meet its commitments under the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. But it's also a response to the heavy air pollution that has plagued France and other European countries in recent years. 4 major cities, including Paris, previously announced plans to ban diesel cars by 2025. But France is the first major country to set a date to completely phase out gas and diesel. However, other nations have taken big steps in that direction. Germany's government wants to put 1 million electric cars on the roads by 2020. Norway wants all of its new car sales to be zero or low emission vehicles by 2025. And India set a lofty goal of having nothing but all electric vehicles by 2030.
There is an emotional debate tonight making global headlines. The fate of a terminally ill infant on life support known as Baby Charlie. His parents desperately want to move him to a new hospital. The current hospital is resisting. And now President Trump and the Vatican are getting involved. ABC's James Longman from London tonight.
A family facing the greatest loss imaginable, tonight caught in an international tug of war over their dying child. Charlie Gard has a genetic disease. He's unable to see, hear, or even breathe on his own. British doctors say there is no cure. They want to switch off the machine that keeps him alive. Days ago, his parents pleading to bring him home to die.
And we've promised our little boy every single day that we will take him home. Because that is a promise we thought we could keep.
But then new hope. The Pope lending the family support. A Vatican Children's Hospital offering Charlie treatment. Tonight, the British government has blocked that move, agreeing with doctors who insist it would be cruel to keep him alive.
It's an unimaginable position for anybody to be in.
Charlie's parents have raised nearly $1.7 million to pay for experimental treatment in the US. This week, President Trump tweeting, "If we can help little Charlie, we'd be delighted to do so." Tonight, Charlie's mother saying the support from the president and the Pope has given us hope, but his future remains uncertain.